Welcome back. Today we're diving deep into the world of habits.
Habits.
Yeah, specifically how to build better ones.
Love it.
I know you're all really into personal development.
Absolutely.
So we're taking a look at Atomic Habits by James Clear
Oh, yeah. Classic.
to uncover some strategies we can all use.
Strategies are key.
One of the most fascinating stories he tells is about the British cycling team.
Oh, yeah. What about them?
They went from being mediocre
Right.
to dominating the Olympics
Wow.
just by focusing on tiny 1% improvements.
Tiny.
Yeah, like across their entire training system.
That's interesting.
It's amazing how those small changes added up.
To massive results.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really highlights the power of consistency, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like compound interest, but for self-improvement.
I like that.
Each tiny improvement builds upon the last,
Yeah,
creating a snowball effect over time.
that's powerful.
Even James Clear used this principle in his own life.
Really?
After a serious baseball injury, he had to relearn how to walk.
Oh, wow.
He started with tiny steps, literally,
Literally.
focusing on simple movements during physical therapy.
Okay.
Then he applied the same principle to building his business
Uh-huh.
and writing Atomic Habits,
Oh, wow.
starting with just 2 articles per week.
It's inspiring, right? It makes you wonder,
Highlight.
what tiny changes are we making daily that are shaping our future selves?
That is a good question.
Are we hitting the gym consistently, learning something new each day?
Yeah.
Or are we letting those 1% losses accumulate
Setting us back.
without even realizing it?
Oh, that's scary.
Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential,
What's that?
where we put in the effort but don't see results for a while,
Oh, I've so been there.
which can be super frustrating, right?
The worst.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. It's like pushing a giant boulder uphill.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like nothing's happening. You're
Yeah.
putting in all this work and the boulder isn't budging.
Okay.
But then suddenly you reach the crest of the hill
Yeah.
and the boulder starts rolling down the other side,
Wow.
gaining momentum with every inch.
I like that visual.
Those breakthroughs we see,
Yeah.
the ones that seem like overnight successes,
Right.
they're actually the culmination of all those tiny efforts
Yeah.
we've been putting in consistently.
Okay, so we're seeing how important tiny changes are.
They are.
But how do we even start thinking about changing our habits?
Especially.
If we're very goal-oriented.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in achieving a specific outcome.
Sure.
But Clear actually challenges that whole goals-first mindset.
He does.
Feel
He
that.
does.
Interesting to say.
He argues that focusing too much on goals
Yeah,
can make our happiness conditional.
conditional.
We start thinking, I'll be happy when I hit this goal,
Yeah,
when I achieve that milestone.
that's so common.
But what about enjoying the process itself?
Yeah, good point.
He suggests shifting our focus from goals to systems.
So instead of getting hung up on running a marathon, I should focus on my training schedule, my nutrition plan,
Yeah.
and getting enough sleep.
All those things.
Make those my priority.
Exactly. Because if you have a solid system in place,
Yeah.
the outcomes, like running that marathon,
Right.
will naturally follow.
I like that it takes the pressure off the end goal
It does.
and puts the emphasis on building sustainable, healthy habits.
The best kind.
But what about our mindset, our identity?
Ooh, good question.
How does that fit into the equation?
Well, research shows there's a powerful link between our actions and the type of person we believe ourselves to be.
Okay.
For example, people who identify as voters are more likely to vote.
That makes sense.
Non-smokers are less likely to light up.
Right.
Our actions often reflect the identity we hold.
So if I want to build a new habit, like writing every day, I need to start seeing myself as a writer.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It's about incorporating that desired behavior into your self-image.
I see.
But remember, this can work both ways. Negative self-beliefs can lead to negative behaviors as well.
So it's a two-way street.
Totally.
Our habits shape our identity, and our identity shapes our habits.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
And that's why Clear emphasizes the importance of becoming the type of person who performs the desired actions.
Okay.
That shift in identity becomes your guiding star for habit change.
Well, I like that.
Think of it as becoming the architect of your future self,
Ooh,
crafting an identity that embodies the habits you want to cultivate.
that's powerful.
So now we understand the importance of small changes,
Yes.
systems, and identity.
Right.
Let's break down how habits actually form.
Yes, let's.
Clear outlines a 4-step process.
Okay, what is it?
Cue, craving response, and reward.
Interesting.
It's like a continuous loop in our brains.
The loop?
Imagine you're trying to eat healthier,
Okay.
but you see a plate of cookies on the counter.
Oh, no.
That's your cue.
Okay.
It triggers a craving,
For cookies.
which is the desire for a sugary treat.
That makes sense.
Your response is to eat the cookies.
Right.
And the reward is that delicious taste and maybe even a sense of comfort.
It's a tough cycle to break.
So it's like a chain reaction,
Nah.
starting with the trigger and ending with a reinforcing reward.
Okay.
And I can see how this applies to bad habits as well. Like
Yeah.
reaching for a cigarette when feeling stressed.
Makes sense. So it's like we're wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
Yeah.
And those immediate rewards often feel more compelling than the long-term benefits of good habits.
Absolutely. That explains why it's so difficult to resist.
All those temptations.
That tempting dessert or procrastinate on an important task.
Oh, I know it.
We're fighting against our own biology in many ways.
So how do we combat that?
Yeah, good question.
How do we make good habits more attractive and bad habits less so?
Right.
It can't just be about willpower, right?
I don't think so.
There has to be a more strategic approach.
I think you're right. Willpower alone isn't enough. It's like trying to swim upstream against a strong current.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, you'll get tired and swept away.
That's a good analogy.
Clear suggests taking a more proactive approach
Okay.
by strategically designing our environment
Okay.
to make good habits easier and bad habits harder.
I see.
He calls it environment design.
So instead of trying to resist temptation all the time,
Right.
I should make it harder to even encounter those temptations in the first place.
Precisely. Think about it. Every habit is initiated by a cue,
Okay.
something that triggers the behavior.
Right.
So if we can make the cues for good habits more obvious
Yeah.
and the cues for bad habits invisible,
Okay.
we're already setting ourselves up for success.
That makes a lot of sense. So like if I'm trying to eat healthier, I should make sure there are always fresh fruits and vegetables readily available
Yes.
while keeping those tempting snacks out of sight.
Exactly. Or if you're trying to exercise more.
Yeah.
Put your gym clothes out the night before, so they're staring you in the face when you wake up.
Makes sense.
Make it obvious on the flip side.
Yeah.
Make those bad habits invisible. Unsubscribe from tempting email lists.
Oh, yeah.
Hide those social media apps on your phone. Even turn off notifications.
I'm starting to see how powerful these small tweaks can be.
They are powerful.
It's like we're setting up a series of friendly reminders throughout the day,
Right.
gently nudging ourselves in the right direction.
And this idea of environment design isn't just limited to our personal lives.
Really?
Businesses use it all the time.
Oh, interesting how.
Think about how companies streamline their websites
Okay.
to make it easier for you to buy something with just a few clicks.
Oh, yeah.
They're removing friction, making the desired behavior, in this case, purchasing, as effortless as possible.
It's fascinating how much we can learn from observing the world around us.
It is.
Now, Clear also talks about the importance of awareness.
Oh, yeah, that's key.
Before we can change our habits, we need to know what they are, right?
Absolutely. Many of our habits operate on autopilot.
Autopilot!
We do them without even thinking.
It's true.
He suggests creating a habit scorecard,
What's that?
where you list out all your daily habits and categorize them as positive, negative, or neutral.
So you can see them.
It's a way to shine a light on those unconscious behaviors, making them visible, so you can start to make conscious choices
About what?
about which ones to keep, which ones to ditch, and which ones to change.
That seems like a really insightful exercise once we've identified the habits we want to change.
Right.
How do we make those changes stick? It's easy to start with good intentions,
Yeah.
but then life gets in the way and we fall back into old patterns.
That's where the power of commitment comes in.
Okay.
Clear talks about implementation intentions,
With those?
which are basically specific plans for when and where you will perform a desired habit.
So instead of vaguely saying, I'll exercise more, I would say, I'll go for a 30-minute run every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. in the park.
Exactly. You're removing the guesswork, the decision fatigue.
I like it.
You're pre-committing to the action, making it more likely to happen.
Okay.
And you're also leveraging the power of cues.
Yeah.
The linking the habit to a specific time and location.
Uh-huh.
You're creating a trigger that automatically prompts you to act.
That's really clever. And Clear also talks about habit stacking, right?
Yes, habit stacking is a brilliant way to build new habits.
Okay.
By connecting them to existing ones, you're essentially piggybacking on the momentum of a behavior you're already doing consistently.
That's interesting. Like after I brush my teeth, I will floss.
Exactly. It's such a simple but effective technique.
Simple and effective. I like it.
And once you've mastered that stack, You can keep adding new behaviors,
Hmm.
creating a chain reaction of positive habits.
It's like building a positive feedback loop,
Huh?
where each successful action reinforces the next. Now, let's talk about the role of dopamine in habit formation. We touched on this earlier, how our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
Yeah.
But how can we actually use this knowledge to our advantage?
Well, one strategy is called temptation bundling.
What's that?
It's about linking an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Yeah.
Let's say you love watching your favorite TV show,
Okay.
but hate folding laundry.
Oh, yeah.
Temptation bundling would be watching that show only while folding laundry.
You're kidding.
You're essentially turning a chore into something you enjoy.
That's a brilliant idea. And Clear also suggests creating a reward ritual.
I love those.
To celebrate milestones, like treating yourself to a special meal or a relaxing bath after achieving a goal.
It's a good idea.
It's like adding a little bit of extra pleasure to those good habits,
Yeah.
making them even more satisfying and therefore more likely to stick.
Exactly. And it doesn't even have to be a big reward.
Right.
Sometimes just acknowledging your progress and giving yourself a pat on the back is enough to reinforce the positive behavior.
Speaking of reinforcement, Clear also emphasizes the importance of making those bad habits less satisfying, right?
Absolutely. He calls it the cardinal rule of behavior change.
What is it?
What you reward is what you repeat,
Uh-huh.
regardless of whether it's beneficial or harmful.
So we need to be careful.
So we need to find ways to add a little pain to those bad habits to make them less appealing.
So, like, putting a rubber band on your wrist and snapping it every time you catch yourself engaging in a negative behavior?
That's one approach, but it doesn't have to be that literal.
Okay.
Sometimes just being more mindful of the negative consequences of a bad habit can be enough to decrease its appeal.
So if I'm trying to cut back on social media,
Yeah.
I might remind myself of how it makes me feel anxious and unproductive, how it takes away time from more fulfilling activities.
Exactly. You're shifting the focus from the immediate gratification of scrolling through your feed
Yeah.
to the long-term consequences of wasting time and energy.
And Clear also talks about the power of reframing, right?
Yes, reframing is a powerful technique for changing our perspective on a habit.
Like how?
Instead of viewing exercise as a chore, we can reframe it as an opportunity to care for our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
to boost our energy levels, to improve our mood. It's about finding a way to make it enjoyable and rewarding
Yeah.
rather than something we dread.
So it's about focusing on the positive aspects of the change rather than dwelling on what we're giving up?
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And we can apply this same principle to breaking bad habits.
Okay.
Instead of viewing giving up sugar as deprivation,
Yeah.
we can reframe it as a way to reclaim our health, to improve our energy levels, to feel more vibrant and alive.
This is giving me so much to think about. I'm starting to see how changing our habits isn't just about willpower or discipline.
Right.
It's about understanding the psychology behind how habits work
Totally.
and then using those insights to our advantage.
And one of the most important things to remember is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to habit change.
Okay?
What works for one person might not work for another.
So true.
It's about experimenting with different strategies,
Right.
finding what resonates with you, and then tailoring those techniques to fit your unique personality and lifestyle.
So there's no magic formula or quick fix. It's about finding what works for you and then being consistent with it.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of finding the right habits for you comes in.
Okay, tell me more.
Clear talks about the importance of playing a game where the odds are in your favor.
What does that mean?
It's about recognizing that we all have unique strengths and talents,
Right.
and that certain habits will be more enjoyable and sustainable for some individuals than others.
I see.
It's about finding those areas where we naturally excel,
Okay.
where we can leverage our innate abilities to create positive momentum.
It's like playing to our strengths rather than trying to force ourselves into a mold that doesn't fit.
Precisely. And Clear offers a reassuring message.
What's that?
While genes do influence our areas of opportunity, they don't determine our destiny.
Okay.
Hard work and dedication are still essential for success. But by aligning our efforts with our natural abilities,
Yeah.
we're more likely to enjoy the journey and achieve lasting results.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where our passions and our talents intersect,
Yeah.
where we can work hard and make progress while still feeling energized and fulfilled.
Exactly. And this leads us to the Goldilocks rule,
Oh, I've heard of that.
the idea that habits are most enjoyable and sustainable
Yeah.
when they fall within the Goldilocks zone.
Not too hot, not too cold.
Not too hard, not too easy, but just right.
That makes sense. If a habit is too easy, we get bored and lose motivation. But if
Right.
it's too hard, we get discouraged and give up.
Exactly. To reach mastery, It's important to progressively challenge ourselves.
Okay.
But pushing too far beyond our current abilities can lead to frustration and burnout.
So how do we find that sweet spot, that just right level of challenge?
It's a process of experimentation and self-awareness.
Okay.
It's about paying attention to how we feel when we engage in a particular habit. If it feels too easy, we might need to increase the difficulty.
Right.
If it feels overwhelming, we might need to scale it back.
So it's a constant process of adjustment and fine-tuning, like
Yeah.
finding the right setting on a thermostat to create the perfect temperature.
Exactly. And one of the techniques Clear suggests for gradually scaling up habits is called habit shaping.
Okay, what's that?
It's about breaking down a seemingly daunting task into smaller, more manageable steps,
Okay.
making it less intimidating and more likely to be initiated.
So like instead of saying I'm going to write a novel,
Right.
I might say I'm going to write for 15 minutes each day.
Exactly. Or instead of saying, I'm going to run a marathon,
Yeah.
you might say, I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk 3 times a week.
Okay.
It's about finding that tiny gateway habit, that small action that triggers the cascade of behaviors that lead to the desired outcome.
I love that it takes the pressure off and makes those big goals seem more attainable.
And Clear emphasizes that it's better to do less than we hoped
Mm.
than to do nothing at all.
Oh,
One push-up is better than no exercise.
that's true.
1 minute of guitar practice is better than none at all.
Right.
1 minute of reading is better than never picking up a book. It's about celebrating those small wins,
Yeah.
acknowledging our efforts and recognizing that consistency, even at a small scale, is the key to building lasting habits.
It's such a reassuring message. It's okay to start small, to embrace imperfection, and to trust that those small actions consistently repeated will lead to significant results over time.
They will.
And as we build momentum, we can gradually increase the challenge,
Yes.
pushing ourselves just beyond our comfort zone to keep things interesting and ensure continued progress.
It's about finding that sweet spot between challenge and mastery,
Okay.
where we're constantly pushing ourselves just beyond our comfort zone, but not so far that we become overwhelmed or discouraged.
Right.
It's in this Goldilocks zone that we experience the most growth,
Yeah.
both in terms of our skills and our sense of self-efficacy.
Yeah. This is reminding me of the story Clear shares about the elite weightlifting coach
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
who said, at some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day doing the same lifts over and over and over.
It's so true.
It's a different way of thinking about work ethic.
It is.
It's not always about passion or excitement.
No.
Sometimes it's about grit, determination, and the willingness to embrace the monotony of the process.
And what's fascinating is how this connects to the concept of habit shaping,
Uh-huh.
which Clear describes as a technique for scaling up habits by starting small bazzers, mastering the first 2 minutes of a behavior, and gradually increasing the difficulty over time.
I love the examples he gives.
What are they?
Read before bed each night becomes read one page.
Yeah.
Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat.
Uh-huh.
Run 3 miles becomes tie my running shoes.
I love it.
It's about finding that tiny gateway habit,
Right.
that small action that triggers the cascade of behaviors that lead to the desired outcome.
And what's brilliant about this approach is that it removes the friction, the resistance,
Yeah.
the mental barriers that often prevent us from taking action.
Yeah, those mental barriers are tough.
By making the first step ridiculously easy, we increase the likelihood of actually starting. And once we've started,
Yeah.
it's much easier to keep going.
It's like building momentum one tiny step at a time, and as we build consistency, we can gradually increase the challenge,
Exactly.
pushing ourselves just beyond our comfort zone to keep things interesting and ensure continued progress.
And Clear reminds us that the more we ritualize the beginning of a process,
Uh-huh.
the more likely it becomes that we can slip into the state of deep focus required to do great things.
It's about creating a series of triggers, both internal and external, that signal to our brains that it's time to engage in the desired behavior.
And as those triggers become more ingrained, the actions themselves become more automatic,
Yeah.
requiring less mental effort and willpower.
It's like we're rewiring our brains, creating new neural pathways that make those desired behaviors more effortless and enjoyable.
And one of the key principles Clear emphasizes is that we can't improve a habit that doesn't exist.
That's a good point. It's about taking action, even if it's imperfect, even if it's just for 2 minutes, and trusting that those small steps will lead to bigger changes over time.
It's about embracing the process, the journey of self-improvement, the continuous cycle of learning, experimenting, and refining our habits as we strive to become the best versions of ourselves.
And speaking of becoming the best versions of ourselves, one of the most profound insights in the book is the recognition that our habits shape our identity
Totally.
and our identity shapes our habits. It's a continuous feedback loop.
And Clear reminds us that the focus should always be on becoming the type of person we want to be,
Okay.
not just getting a particular outcome. It's about aligning our actions with our desired identity,
Uh-huh.
creating a sense of congruence between who we are and what we do.
It's about living a life that reflects our values, our beliefs, our aspirations.
And as we cultivate habits that support our desired identity, those habits become easier, more natural, more ingrained in our daily lives.
It's like we're creating a positive, self-fulfilling prophecy. This is so empowering, isn't it?
It is.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to shape our identities to become the kind of people we want to be through the consistent practice of habits that reflect those desired qualities.
And this brings me to another key point that resonated with me.
What's that?
The importance of making bad habits unsatisfying.
Okay.
Clear talks about the cardinal rule of behavior change,
Oh, what is it?
which states that what you reward is what you repeat, regardless of whether it's beneficial or harmful.
It's a stark reminder that our brains don't discriminate between good and bad habits. They simply learn to repeat those actions that are followed by a reward, whether it's a dopamine hit from eating junk food or a feeling of accomplishment from completing a challenging task.
So we really got to pay attention to those rewards.
So if our brains are wired to seek pleasure, how do we make bad habits less satisfying?
A good question.
Do we have to punish ourselves every time we slip up?
No, it's not about punishment,
Oh,
but about making those bad habits less appealing.
okay, how do we do that?
One way is to increase the friction,
Friction.
make the undesirable behavior more difficult or inconvenient to perform.
Oh, I see. If it takes more effort to indulge in a bad habit, we're less likely to give in.
Exactly.
Like putting those tempting snacks on a high shelf.
Yeah,
Or you have to get a step stool to reach them.
that's a good one.
I'm short, so it works for me.
And we can also leverage technology to help us.
Oh, interesting how.
We could use website blockers to prevent us from accessing distracting websites,
Yeah, that's a good one.
or set up automatic savings plans so we're consistently contributing to our financial goals.
So instead of relying on willpower alone,
Right.
we're strategically designing our digital environment to support our good habits
Exactly.
and make those bad habits less accessible.
If you want to really up the ante,
Okay.
Clear suggests creating a habit contract.
Contract.
It's a written agreement that outlines the consequences of engaging in an undesired behavior,
Oh, interesting.
making the pain of those consequences more immediate and tangible.
He tells the story of Brian Harris,
Yeah, I remember that one.
a software entrepreneur who created a habit contract with his wife and trainer to help him lose weight.
Oh, yeah, what did it say?
He outlined specific consequences for things like missing his nutrition goals,
Okay.
forgetting to weigh himself, or skipping his sprints.
Oh, wow, so he had to stick to it.
Yeah, he really did. It's like having external accountability for your actions.
Exactly.
It makes those consequences feel more real,
Right.
more immediate, and therefore more motivating to avoid.
And even if we don't want to create a formal habit contract, just having an accountability partner,
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
someone who can support us and hold us responsible, can make a huge difference.
It's like having a cheerleader in your corner.
Yeah.
Someone who believes in you and your goals.
Mhm.
Someone who's there to celebrate your wins and encourage you when you stumble.
That social support can be so powerful.
It
It
can.
makes us feel more connected,
Ah,
more motivated, and less likely to give up on ourselves.
right. But Clear also emphasizes the importance of intrinsic motivation, the
So that-
drive that comes from within.
Because ultimately, the most sustainable habits are those that we genuinely enjoy,
Right.
those that align with our values and interests.
I see.
While external rewards can be helpful in the early stages,
Yeah.
it's that internal sense of satisfaction and purpose that will keep us going in the long run.
So it's not just about achieving a goal, it's about the journey itself,
Exactly.
about finding activities that we look forward to
Right.
that make us feel energized and fulfilled.
It's about creating a life where our habits are not chores,
Uh-huh.
but rather expressions of who we are, reflections of our values and aspirations.
So much of this boils down to mindset, doesn't it? It's about cultivating a growth mindset, believing that we can change, that we can improve, that we're not limited by our past mistakes or current limitations.
That's a really important point, and Clear reminds us that the journey of self-improvement isn't about seeking perfection,
Oh, that's good.
but rather embracing the process of continuous growth and development.
Okay.
There will be setbacks, challenges, moments of doubt,
Yeah, there will be.
but it's in those moments of perseverance,
Yeah.
those moments when we choose to keep going, despite the obstacles,
Right.
that we truly forge our character and build our resilience.
And it's about finding joy in the journey, celebrating the small wins, acknowledging our efforts, and trusting that those consistent actions, even if they seem small or insignificant in the moment, will compound over time to create remarkable results.
One of the most empowering takeaways from Claire's work is the reminder that we have the power to shape our identities.
Our destinies.
Through the daily choices we make, it's not about some grand transformation.
Right.
It's about those small, seemingly insignificant habits that we repeat day after day.
It's like we're weaving a tapestry one thread at a time.
I love that.
Each habit is a thread, and as we weave them together,
Yeah.
they create the beautiful, intricate pattern of our lives.
Beautiful. And as we continue to explore the ideas in atomic habits, remember to be patient with yourself, to experiment with different strategies, and to find what works best for you.
Because there's no one-size-fits-all approach to habit change.
Exactly.
We each have to find our own path, our own rhythm, our own unique set of strategies that will support us in becoming the best versions of ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of atomic habits,
Yes.
I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, hit me.
What small change can you make today, right now, that will set you on the path to achieving your goals?
Big question.
And how can you make that change enjoyable and satisfying so it sticks?
Because ultimately, it's not about achieving some distant goal, but about creating a life filled with habits that bring us joy, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose. It's about becoming the architects of our own best lives, one small habit at a time. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to become the best version